Hey everybody, how are you? It's Peter again for MLB Trade Rumors and Discussions. It's Friday, February 7, 2020. Keeping this going every single day for the rest of the year, just like I promised you guys. Today, I really want to talk about something that, that always is very important to me as a baseball fan, and that's an ace of the pitching staff, okay? All us fans who watch baseball, whatever team you are, if you want any shot at going somewhere, you need an ace. And when I say ace, that doesn't just mean a number one starter, because anybody can be a number one starter, right? If your staff isn't great. But I'm talking about an ace. Let's define what an ace is. An ace is a guy who's going to go out and pitch over 200 innings, who's going to dominate, get into the seventh inning almost all the time, 8 strikeouts to 10 strikeouts, just gritty, tough guy who's going to lead that pitching staff, right? Look at any World Series champion, and then let's look at some regular teams. Look at last year, the World Series champion, right? Look at who they're, not only did they have one ace, they had two aces. Look at the year before that. They had Chris Sale on Boston. That was an ace and a half. Look what happened the year after when he couldn't stay healthy. It wasn't even close. Look, it's regardless of Houston cheating, just look at who they had in Verlander, right? You can look at the Cubs. They had, as much as Lester was a really good pitcher at that time, and he definitely was an ace type pitcher. You have to look at what a starting pitcher can do, because you need that guy at the top of your pitching staff, because he starts everything. So the reason I'm mentioning this today is because I feel a lot of teams in baseball now, at least are trying, they get away from their pitching. A lot of them are shortening their pitching staff with 5 2/3 or 6 2/3, and they don't let their pitchers go past 99 to 101, 102 pitches. You see everybody warming up in the bullpen, and it sucks, because that's where, why these Tommy John surgeries are happening. That's why pitchers can't last long, because their arm isn't built up to that point. You need an ace to do more than just pitch throughout the season, because what an ace does is it gives everybody a chance to settle into their other rotation, right? You can take the Diamondbacks if you want. Like, Bumgarner's an ace, and if you looked at the Diamondbacks, they were talking about, where's Zach Gallen going to be? But if you look at most teams, if Zach Gallen was on a different team right now, like the Marlins, he wouldn't be questioning if he was going to be in the rotation. What would happen was Zach Gallen would be just right away one of the top pitchers for them, because of the way he's been pitching. But since the Diamondbacks went out and got an ace in Bumgarner, and they kept Robbie Ray, so everybody now moves back, right? Because now you got Mike Leake, and now you have to earn your spot. So, and it also helps these young pitchers develop. It helps them develop into time to become an ace if they're going to be. But too many of these young pitchers now are like thrown out there right away to be an ace, but then they're getting taken out with 75 to 85 pitches early, because God forbid they not hurt their arm, and they're just not being developed right. Too many things are happening with this, right? And a guy who comes to mind who is just one of the top pitchers I've ever seen is Justin Verlander, right? Regardless of playoffs or not, Kershaw, these guys, if you look at Detroit back then and they're very successful, because not that the pitching staff was amazing behind them, just for having that guy every fifth day come out. Like back in the day, if you guys are Diamondback fans, or regardless, you had Randy Johnson coming every fifth day. So if we went on a 2-3 game losing streak, it didn't matter, because you knew Randy Johnson was coming. So you knew it was going to stop right there. And if it didn't stop, you knew you were going to get very close. So you feel that, as opposed to having back in, like, when Irvin Santana was the ace of Minnesota, and you're just like, you're not too sure of these guys. They don't come out and scare you, because they're not legitimate aces. They're not going to be workhorses who are going to just come at this pitching staff and give you that 110 to 115 pitches that you least need. Verlander is that guy who just comes to mind, who is a terrific guy. The reason why I say the Yankees are going to win the championship this year is that they were lacking an ace, right? I know they had Tanaka, who was a good pitcher and a good playoff pitcher, and I know they had Severino, who was good and he was young, but they didn't have this guy like they had back in the day, right? They didn't have this guy who can come in as a number one starter and just dominate. They just had more of guys who maybe they're going to go 5, 6 innings. You weren't sure. It wasn't the same Yankee team back when it was Roger Clemens pitching game 1 against the Diamondbacks, right? It wasn't that. It wasn't that scary, even though, excuse me, it wasn't. It was Mike Mussina, but just, you know what I mean. Just having Clemens pitch game 3 of the Yankee series when he was on Yankee Stadium, having that guy come in there, knowing it's Roger Clemens, knowing it's that big time starter, right? The Diamondbacks were up 2-0. He came in, and you knew he was going to give you that. And then when he pitched game 7, right away he went against Curt Schilling, blow for blow, right? It's just needing that pitcher. You're not going anywhere without it. And I think a lot of teams miss that. A lot of teams miss that because they're trying to get real number 3s and number 2s, and they're trying to put them into the number 1 spot, and they're not. You're never going to do that. You're never going to win when you try to put a guy who doesn't belong in the number 1 spot there, right? For me, Greinke was a great pitcher. And it's, believe it or not, he was really a number 2 for me, not a number 1. Because he was too much, hitting the corners and trying to, he didn't have that 115 pitch outing where he's just gritty and throwing at you. He didn't have that, Who had that? Madison Bumgarner had that, right? Regardless of what. That's why they won the World Series a bunch of times, right? That's why they won, even though they had that tough time against the Royals and they went against the Pirates that time. He just went at them. And you knew you had this guy that you can jump on, like this workhorse, that you can just say, hey, that's my guy, and everybody can just jump on his back and feel comfortable. And on top of that, let's talk about closers. Let's talk about how important closers are. Because just like a book, you need the front part and then you need the ending, right? If you're going to be any great team, like, again, let's go back to Boston a few years ago when they had Kimbrel and they had Sale. That was a nice 1-2 punch you had right there, right? When you have something like that, that is a way to just scare the crap out of a team because you're getting 7 innings from a dominant pitcher and then you're getting at least 1 inning from the closer. So then if you can just figure out 1 inning in between, you're done. That is the most important part in this game where you guys, there has to be spots, there has to be a foundation built throughout the team. And then everyone can follow. You can't go bullpen by committee. You can't go, let's try to get an ace in here, right? You can't just try to turn in a guy who is just I'll say it again, a number 2 starter. And you can't turn a guy who's a setup man into a closer. It rarely happens. It's very difficult. You're trying to, this guy, he pitched pretty good in the 7th inning. Let's try him out as a closer. It's not. You need a legitimate guy who's going to not be scared in the 9th inning. He's not going to walk anybody, There's a reason why the Yankees were so successful with Mariano Rivera. So those are the things that, if you're going to be a great team, if I'm talking about the Diamondbacks, I feel the Diamondbacks are missing that completely. I feel the Diamondbacks are missing the closer part of it. Because if you don't have a closer at the end, that's going to be scary. And I like Archie Bradley, but I think he's more of a setup man than he is a closer. I'm more excited about Ginkel, to be honest with you. But that's just for another story, and this for us Diamondback fans. But the Dodgers, they've been successful for a while. They didn't win the championship. But, you had Kershaw, and then you had Lights Out Jansen. That's really tough when, back in the day when Kershaw was just, and he's still a great pitcher, but I'm talking about when Kershaw was like, oh my God, here's Kershaw. You're not even getting a single off of this guy. This guy was going 8 innings, 12 strikeouts. And then you got Jansen, Felix Hernandez back in the day, Randy Johnson, Curt Schilling. These guys were going 7 innings, 8 innings, and then you throw it to your closer and you don't have a chance. And that just makes everybody better. So, these teams, I was reading a comment about the Diamondbacks today, and then do they spend enough? Are they ever going to spend enough to win a championship? And, that there's very little truth to that. If you're smart, you don't need to spend too much if you know how to do it. The Yankees didn't spend too much. They did now to get their guy. Sometimes you need to develop, and then spend where you need to spend, right? Spending doesn't win you championships. Being smart, building an ace, building a closer, getting that, knowing where everybody goes, not trying to force people into different spots. That's just my opinion, guys. I just wanted to let me know what you think about aces, because to me, that's everything in baseball. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.